Hey everyone, welcome back to Real Talk NFT, where we talk all things Web3. I'm your host, Joe Chu, along with my co-host, Brian McNutt. We want to welcome today Toby Rush, founder of Redeem. Toby, welcome onto the podcast.
Hey guys, great to be here. Excited to have a little conversation.
Definitely. We want to hear so much about what you're doing because you have a very big mission. Can you tell us a little bit before we jump into Redeem, a little bit about your background, how you got into Web3 space?
Yeah, no, I serial entrepreneur. This is actually my third company from scratch, which means I like pain because I keep doing the 0 to 1, which is super hard and super iterative, a lot of unknowns. But I love product. I love teams. Typically, all of my companies have been pretty advanced technologies, but all around simplicity and convenience. Right? As my first company, we put technology on forklifts and we let forklift drivers be race car drivers. So we did all the data collection. They literally could drive as fast as they wanted. The second company, I came across a professor doing an eye-based biometric, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like we could use these brand new selfie cameras. This is 2011. These selfie cameras on smartphones and do biometrics. Like we could get rid of the password. And everybody's like, why would anyone do biometrics on smartphones? That's crazy. I was like, I don't know. This kind of feels like a pretty obvious use case. I can just look at my phone. And we got lucky. We started that company called iVerify in 2012. Apple came out with Touch ID in 13 and then Apple Pay in 14. And we ended up with Wells Fargo, Citigroup, RSA Security. We had 60 banks in production using a little eye-based biometric and ended up selling that one to Alibaba. Where I ran payments. I ran the biometrics group for payments. Alipay was our big wallet. And so, we ended up with 700 million users,
Wow.
Really, really big scale. Spent a ton of time in China, India, Indonesia. And what was fascinating about that experience, which really informed kind of what I'm doing now is, payments, of course, is highly secure. You got to have a lot of kind of back-end infrastructure, but their target were people who may have never had any kind of online payment before. Right. So these were small mom and pop businesses. They were literally, it's Jane and Joe off Main Street wanting to engage in digital commerce of various kinds. And so convenience had to be great, super simple, really not technical, but highly secure on the back end. And so while I was with Alibaba, they asked me to move over to their investments team. And as I was on the investments team, my specific focus was blockchain. Well, when you're in China and you're focused on blockchain, there is no cryptocurrencies and there are no CryptoKitties, right? So it's what are the hardcore business use cases that blockchain makes things better, faster, cheaper, stronger, whatever that is. And so my lens has always been around kind of utility, ease of use, things of just really practical, boring use cases around blockchain. So as I went back to start building about a year and a half ago, really, that was the lens of hey, how do we make this easier, faster, cheaper? So it really wasn't so much cryptocurrencies, and it was definitely NFTs, but not speculative purchasing and selling and buying assets as a collector, but how NFTs can impact the real world.
Wow, that's you have a pretty expensive background there, and definitely a lot of experience to lead the masses into hopefully adopting this technology, which is a good segue. That's a big problem, right? A lot of users don't know the hurdles of getting into Web3. Can you give us a small peek of how that technology actually works?
Yeah. So how does kind of Redeem work?
Yes.
So if you take a step back, so again, keep in mind a lot of my perspective and kind of worldview around this was heavily influenced around mobile, right? So I've been working with mobile technologies for the better part of 20 years. And as I was in Asia, everything is mobile. It's not mobile first, it's mobile only, right? And so we're really, really deep into kind of how mobile can be used for everything. As I began thinking about all these interesting use cases with NFTs, right? So when a little piece of data can live in an open ecosystem, an open ecosystem is not behind Google, Apple, Meta, Ticketmaster, kind of the government's firewalls, but yet how does data live in an open ecosystem yet maintain trust? Well, that is exactly what an NFT is, right? It's hey, we can do so much around certificates, credentials, ticketing, loyalty, a title, a policy, all these things that an individual would want to own and be able to prove ownership to give an unlock of whatever that might be. Well, to do this, you got to be really secure because I can't call up Google and say, hey, I lost my password. Can you log me into my Google account? Yeah. Right. But at the same time, if you want mass market, it's got to be stupid easy. Right. And so we had this kind of conundrum between security and convenience that we're really at odds with each other. Right. And so you see the 12 phrase passwords and just lots of complexity and a lot of extra hardware. And so the aha that we had is we've got a really, really secure piece of hardware in our phone, in our pocket. It's called our phone. right? And this phone happens to have a globally unique number tied very, very tightly to the SIM card on this phone, right? And so you think your phone number, it is the only global directory system the entire world has opted into voluntarily. Right.
Yeah.
So, and it kind of feels like mine. I can go from carrier to carrier to carrier. It's not Google's phone number. It's not even AT&T or Verizon's phone number because I can take it with me. Right. So it kind of feels like my number, which I can now, as a company, I can call AT&T's API and say, hey, give me a SIM verification of this phone number is active on this device right now. Right. But then these devices also have a biometric where a consumer can bind themselves to the phone.
Right.
Really convenient. Touch ID, Face ID, whatever that local biometrics are. And then we can wrap it in a really easy authentication framework called OAuth or a social login, right? So instead of log in with Google or Facebook or Apple, quite literally, we let you log in with your phone, right? And so what we've done is we've transformed your phone into a key that unlocks the digital world while keeping it incredibly secure.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. I mean, just any way that you can, ease the use of onboarding the masses and just making it easier without like a clunky crypto interface or these decentralized wallets where it's 12, 24 keywords. Don't lose it. It becomes challenging. Right. My hope for like Web3 is that we'll be treating a lot of these decentralized wallets or logins similar as we would like a phone number or an email, really like what you're building. But one of my biggest questions for you was just like overall the security and how that works and how we can make sure the digital assets are secure, our crypto secure, if it's tickets, whatever that is, just because you hear about so many different scams over phones and email. How's yours different?
Yeah, it's a great question. So a lot of the scams with both email and phone scams come when someone sends you a code or sends you a password that then gives somebody else access to that the application. So with what we're doing, there is no password, right? And frankly, there isn't really a username that's independent of this. And knowing my phone number doesn't do you any good, right? Because that phone number must be verified with the SIM card in the hardware that's in my hands that I can then connect to the carrier to say, yep, does this piece of hardware have this unique identifier tied to it right now, right? So the idea of we're not sending out an SMS one-time password or an OTP, we're not relying on, I'm going to send you a link in your email, right? Because any kind of account takeover, that breaks down immediately, right? And so the idea is we're not asking the user to give me anything that I have to simply trust. Like, this is the ultimate trustless environment. I am, I guess, trusting AT&T or Verizon or T-Mobile that they're only going to allow their phone onto their network. But again, they've spent many billions of dollars making sure that only this particular SIM card with that phone number can access the network, right? So there's a little bit of trust. That's a place that, again, as an entrepreneur, I think that's probably the right balance of decentralization, yet kind of a trustless type of environment, right? So if you have your phone, you have your key. A question we often get that many of the listeners may be thinking is like, yeah, but what about SIM swap? Okay, so a SIM swap is when I go like, no, my name is really it's Brian. I lost my phone. I go into Verizon and say, hey, give me my phone back. I lost it. This is an emergency. Here's my documentation. Hurry. And someone says, sure, here's a new phone, and they activate your phone number, but it's really me, right? That's called a SIM swap. Right. Well, we do basically a really simple thing. If you try to then re-access kind of through our platform, any of the wallets, any of the applications, we say, hey, wait a second. You have to do two things. You have to send us we do the carrier validation, but that's going to pass because you just got a phone with someone else's phone number. So if you've onboarded one time and we see you bring on a new phone, we have a really simple 6-digit recovery PIN. Right. And the only time you have to enter a 6-digit recovery PIN is a brand new phone. And so that really the SIM swaps go away. You also have a really short window. If someone does a SIM swap, you've got hours at most, right? Or at least if it's at night, when you wake up in the morning and your phone doesn't work, the first thing you're doing is you're calling in is like, whoa, hang on. What happened to my phone? Right. It's also in the carrier's interest. SIM swaps are bad. They're bad. Like they're horrible. And so they are spending hundreds of millions of dollars globally, making it very difficult to do SIM swaps. Right. So we think that window is going to get harder and harder and harder. Even when it does happen, and it does happen, we have a really simple counter to that of, hey, what's your 6-digit recovery PIN? You can't onboard. Even though we can do a carrier API validation, you don't have your PIN.
Makes sense.
Interesting. Yeah. And on biometrics, what is the intricacies of that? And I just asked this because I'm in the Bay and I see an AI billboard every other block here. How far are we from, AI cracking that code, or with biometrics, that's not possible with AI?
It's really, really hard. And there again, you're trusting Apple and Google and others. And so we're not saying we're sending your biometrics off to some server and you're trusting some random guy. But keep in mind, like I've ran very, very large identity platforms. Like when my previous company was acquired by Alibaba, like we had crazy levels of security and biometrics, and it is wicked hard, right? So what really we're doing is like we're relying on Apple and Google to do that locally for you, right? If somebody hacks that, there are lots of problems, right? So if someone can grab your phone and fake a biometric, that is an incredibly difficult problem. And to some degree, yes, I'm trusting Apple and Google to do a good job on the hardware to make that incredibly difficult.
What are some of the challenges of mass adoption, that we're in the early stages of Web3 and crypto? What's the path look like there?
I think early on, the challenge was user experience is very hard, right? It was not just a new user behavior; it was a new user paradigm, right? Because the idea of it was in entrepreneurship world, like user behavior change is hard. Try to never make your users really change behavior in a significant way, just because it's crazy hard. We're creatures of habit. Web3, blockchain, crypto is not only a behavior change; it was a mental paradigm shift. Like, what do you mean I own my own keys? Like, what do you mean I own my own assets? I don't get it. And like, what do you mean don't share this? Like, it was just a very, very difficult world for people to wrap their heads around. And so I think it was hard, right? Even the way you logged in, okay, I've got to connect wallet. And why do I keep signing this thing when it tells me to keep signing? Like, this isn't anything I'm used to. I'm experienced. So I think early on, those were many of the challenges. I think that is starting to go away. I think the bigger challenge is now is there are not very many compelling use cases. Right? We need more compelling use cases that aren't speculative NFT purchases and sells and isn't just trading cryptocurrencies. Right? So those are real things. But if you want to get to the masses, most people aren't trading penny stocks. Yeah. They don't have time for it, right? And but I don't think trading crypto is the mass market appeal. I don't think buying and selling NFTs is mass market appeal. Most people don't buy and sell collectibles. They can, but that's just not really interesting. So I do think it's when you get to NFT powered experiences, whether it's loyalty or brands or ticketing, musicians, it's things like your insurance policy, it's your academic credentials, it's your certificates, it's all of your titles to I own a house, I own a car, I own a thing, I own a digital representation at the prove ownership, which gives me something else. Like those are really, really interesting use cases, but there aren't that many of them yet. So I think early on it was very much mental model shifts, user behavior change, and really a challenging user experience. I think we've done a much better job on user experience, which reduces the mental model shift. Like you don't have to understand how crypto works with some of the really cool account abstraction and the new wallets. You don't have to go buy, I don't have to go buy ETH before I can actually access the application. Right. So a lot of those things are getting fixed. I think the industry needs to focus on the moment, just more compelling use cases.
Absolutely. The use cases that is shown as examples on your website is the most compelling, simplistic I've ever seen. Something I imagined when I first started with NFT. So I encourage anyone to visit the Redeem website for that. The visuals are amazing. And I do have a use case question for you, more of an idealistic use case in that I would like to see. And just one example that you showed on your website is just how frictionless it can be when you have entities that is easy to, cross interact with QR codes or loyalty rewards programs, to your point, all the way up to redemption. And I see it even more idealistic than that, where you don't have to take out a phone. What do you know when and if they can just scan us, with RFID, and verify our NFTs and walk through queues, right? Sports, music, airports, whatnot. How far are we from that? Or am I just never going to see that happen?
It is far harder than you think, right? So actually one of the projects that I led when I was with Alibaba is actually called Smile to Pay, where you could walk up to a terminal and you didn't actually have to smile, but we called it Smile to Pay because when people did it, they smiled. And when you smile, you feel good. Like it's this weird psychological thing. Like your brain really does respond to your body. So we called it Smile to Pay. And so you smiled and it would link to the Alipay account and make a payment. So these kind of a cashierless checkout process, right? Now the hard part is there are 1.4 billion people in China. how do I know who is walking up to that terminal right now by just looking at their face? That's actually a pretty hard biometrics problem, incredibly hard biometrics problem. And so we would do all sorts of things around, is their device closed, or have we seen them before? Or we'd always need to try to call it the gallery size of reducing that. So if you're just relying on things like biometrics, which is kind of the minority report, that's really hard and that's really scary, right? I don't think people want that as a masquerade, right? China is a different world when it comes to concerns on privacy and other types of things. I think that would be a difficult difficult use case to deploy in many other parts of the world. I think most of the time, the seamlessness is going to be based around this device, right? So is it a Bluetooth, or is it, NFC means I've got to be within an inch or two, but Bluetooth beacon is other kinds of wireless technology, maybe. But then you've got to have Apple and Google play ball, right? So unless those companies are playing ball, can't do it. Right. So I think it is going to be a while until you see a really seamless, completely passive type of authentication. But if you pull your phone out, then all things are possible. Right. So then now I've got a user interface. I've got cameras. I've got NFC. I've got internet. I've got a browser. I've got my local biometrics. I've got all these other things that I can work with. But doing that without taking your phone out of your pocket, it's going to be a long time.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I used to work at DraftKings, and I helped run their NFT marketplace. And we ran into a ton of major brands, Web2 companies, big corporations that wanted to get involved in Web3, especially at the height of it. And still to this day, I know it's tons of companies are still coming. But one of the biggest hangups is those companies, they wanted to build this Web3 initiative. They wanted to get the right people in place. But so that's a challenge in its own right. But then there was this extra layer of just onboarding their users comfortably. And DraftKings actually did a great job with it, because you could still use credit card the way they had like a centralized marketplace. Everything was like the checks and balances through their system. But I noticed that more and more big brands were coming on, and they were just, I don't want to say scared off, but it was almost overwhelming for them to integrate a lot of the intricacies behind, onboarding someone from crypto. So I think the product that you have is wonderful. Are there any partnerships or collaborations that you've been working on? You can give us a sneak peek.
We are working on a couple that are almost live. So we've done a couple that we're really excited about. I can't say the names yet, but I can describe the use cases. So one that we really love is a luxury brand that wanted to have kind of an in-store experience. Right. So the idea is they walk in, they scan a QR code, and that brings up a browser-based AR experience. Right. So think like 8th Wall. So 8th Wall, the same company who did Pokemon Go. Right. So Niantic, 8th Wall is one of their subs. Really, really cool product. So basically, it starts scanning, and as you look around the store, it's looking for anchor images. Right. And so when it sees an anchor image, what it does, it pops up like an AR object on your screen, and you just click on that object, and it automatically gets added to your wallet that's tied to your phone, right? You get your phone number, right? It's on Polygon. But in that way, as soon as they click on that object, they're claiming it, it redirects them back to the luxury brand's website. And now they're token gated with a wallet and an NFT ready to engage. They never spelled NFT. They have no idea what the underlying technology. They went from an IRL to an AR to an NFT to an e-commerce experience. Right, in a really seamless way. So I love that combination of use cases where that phone ended up being the pivotal anchor between those. That's one that we really like. That's getting some really good reception. We have another group that's doing authenticated athletic wear. They're supposed to be launching in the next month or two, kind of with the NFL season here in the U.S., where they have athletes who have signed jerseys, NFC, authenticated. They come in, they tap the NFC, pops up. They have the NFT. That gets launched from that NFC. And so they then have kind of that physical to digital, type of experience. We've done a couple of ticketing, kind of big concerts, big events. We have a few more of those coming up where, it's both a ticketing, but where I think it's not just the ticketing, it's the artist to fan engagement that gets really, really interesting. So those are some, funny enough, we're getting pulled into some really interesting payment use cases, like even traditional payment. We're realizing one of the cool things about using your phone is there are no bots, right? So when you think about it, I can tell if it's a Google Voice versus AT&T versus anybody else. And so we have a number of brands saying, hey, we've got that Web3, that's great, but if you can tell me there's no bots and there's no possibility of account takeover, because there is no password to phish, there is no username that I can kind of steal and do anything with. They think they can actually get a lower fee on their credit card payments because they have this level of fraud. So they're buying online, it's got a card not present. Right. So I'm going to be highly secure. There's no way there's an account takeover. This can't be fraudulent. And we want to use it in the payment world. So we're getting pulled into some interesting payment use cases. Initially, they're not Web3, but those even could be, think about purchasing things in the Web3 space, which gives me even more confidence and excitement about long term. If I can get traditional fintech to trust what we're doing to make payments, then thinking about crypto payments and connecting to wallets and saying, hey, people can be comfortable with what we're doing, connecting to a blockchain wallet or connecting to a payment rail.
I love it.
Wow. There's so much implications and ways that you can change sectors or industries. What's one industry that you feel needs the disruption or needs your service the most?
I think there are a couple. Which ones are? I say that we love the use cases that have both a payment angle and a Web3 engagement, which tends to be merchants. So e-com, I think brands where they're doing a lot of e-commerce. They're wanting to engage. They're already digital, and so they want to be able to engage from a loyalty and rewards perspective with their fans. And there's any kind of IRL. So they might have physical stores. They do physical meetups because your phone is just this beautiful interaction kind of between all of those. So if we can help them, literally reduce their fees to credit card, awesome. And by the way, as soon as they do that, they also have a Web3 wallet. They can now start engaging with NFTs, which can then kind of from a rewards and loyalty, if they show up, the idea of I can simply scan a QR code when I'm in person, that launches the browser. The browser, we know the browser is attached to this device. The device is attached to this phone number, which has these wallets that are attached to it. So a simple scan of a QR code, you can do physical token gating without ever trying to open a wallet, find the NFT, do all these things. It's just a really seamless experience. So yeah, if I were to say e-commerce brands that want to reduce payments and have NFTs for engagement and have any kind of in-person activation.
Love it.
Whew, you're speaking my language. Where do I invest? Because I have about I have 6 hard wallets, and I collect a lot of in-person IRL NFTs, believe it or not. A hot air balloon in Napa Valley, I just utilized that this weekend. I utilize restaurant cool. NFTs. I utilize an in-person, and I have to your point, access a lot of different wallets for that. So I'm very excited about what you guys are working on.
One important point that not everybody kind of gets with what we're doing, we're not trying to be a wallet company. We think of ourselves as a connectivity platform, right? So the idea is your phone is this, and actually, it's funny, I typically don't describe it this way. In this audience, I mean more so, it is kind of the ultimate own your own identity. Like you own your phone, you own your phone number. And so it's kind of your own identity that you get to own and then project it into, I don't know which wallet is going to win, and I don't really care, right? But your phone number can connect to a wallet. So kind of a MetaMask or a Rainbow or Phantom or name your wallet. The way we do that is if I'm on my phone, I say, great, if you can sign a message in MetaMask with your Redeem account, then we know that you own that MetaMask and that phone number. So you say, hey, if anyone's using our API to connect to a wallet, we say, great, here's the default wallet for this user, and that happens to be MetaMask. But say you connect 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 wallets. If you want to scan a QR code, then our little API says, hey, do they hold an NFT in any of their connected wallets? Right. So if you're holding the phone that has been connected to these wallets, now we can't transfer wallet. We're not transferring NFTs out of your wallet. We're simply confirming that you hold the device that is connected to the phone number that is also connected to these wallets. Then you can do token gating with nothing but a really simple QR code.
Awesome. Wow. That's so impressive. I love, again, I'm going to reiterate, just you're going to make it easier for the normal people to onboard to Web3. And that's what we all need in crypto, NFTs, whatever sector we want to talk. We need the user experience to be easier. What were some of the challenges? You're a guru entrepreneur. What were some of the challenges you had with Redeem, and how did you overcome?
I think early on we tried to build more of the stack than we needed to. Right. So initially it was like, hey, should we be doing some of the rewards and loyalty and some of these other pieces? And as we really started to get to market, everyone was like, there's a couple of other platforms that do rewards and loyalty. Can you just let me use the phone number and the connectivity piece, right? So something we had to learn initially is like, wow, if we actually reduced our scope the surface area got bigger, right? So now I didn't have to worry about what utility was being delivered, right? I'm just now going to focus on just the infrastructure and scaffolding around a phone. Let other people build utility, let other people build the use cases. I'm just going to focus on this one really core layer, and then let others build. So, that was a learning that took us, 6 months of wasted time that we had to iterate and work through. And also just learning again, where are the use cases, where are the pain points, right? So how to, an adage that a lot of entrepreneurs use, how do you get an aspirin, not a vitamin? So making things a little bit better is really hard. Going is like a vitamin, right? But going to solve a really, really hard problem that is super painful and it is a blocker from something on the other side, like that's where you need to focus. So I'd say, really making sure we're zeroed in on what are those use cases. And remember, 9 months, a year ago, there was still a ton of just trading of pure cryptocurrencies, which we kind of wanted to be careful of just because it's so dynamic and there's so much risk in that. And so I think to some degree today, it's easier to focus on really pure utility, more traditional Web3 based use cases. But it took us a while to figure that out.
Gotcha. And having hopefully quite some time underneath your belt, both in experience and with Redeem, what's some of the biggest feedback you've gotten from people who've utilized them, whether it be a creator or just a community member?
Yeah, did it do anything? Like literally, like is it done? Like that's kind of one of the yeah, it's done. And the level of the simplicity of once they're onboarded. So also keep in mind. Just like you only sign up for a Google account once, and then you can log in with Google everywhere you want. You only onboard with Redeem once. Every new account that you connect to it, you don't re-authenticate, right? I still have my phone. I still have this binding. And so it's literally one-click onboarding into every new application you want to bring on. And people are like, wait, that's too simple, right? No, I mean, there's a lot of complexity behind the scenes and a lot of things that we do to make it feel simple. So yeah, it's kind of a little bit of like, wait, is it really that easy? And if it's that easy, can it be secure? Right. So it's kind of the funny, because we have a mental paradigm of really good security means really bad user experience. And I think we've kind of threaded the needle to get both of those.
Yeah. Using phone numbers as a link to the digital world seems obvious, especially just talking with you and what you're building. It just seems like, why aren't we doing this?
Well, for the first few months, I kept asking myself, okay, guys, this seems pretty obvious. Why hasn't someone done it? Who's done it? Where have they done it? Have they failed? Why did they fail? Nobody's done it. Nobody's done it. I was like, I guess maybe I should just go do it. It really was kind of honestly, it reminded me of my early iVerify days where I'm like, can I just use the selfie camera to do biometrics to log in? And everyone was like, no, surely someone's done that. Or if that was such a good idea, Apple and Google had already done it. So I do think I was early enough with this particular concept that we got a head start. We've kind of built it. Literally it's 10 minutes to get started. So if your framework knows how to use OAuth, which is social login, like logging up Apple, Google, Facebook, any of those, you can literally drop ours in and 5 minutes be up and running.
It's amazing. Honestly, it's amazing. Just like the simplicity of it kind of excites me. I've onboarded enough people into Web3 where I'm up at all night answering phone calls, trying to help them with MetaMask, trying to help them with their hardware wallets, all of that, all the good stuff, answering questions that I didn't even know existed. So I feel like my knowledge is at an all-time high because I've handled, hundreds of family members and friends problems, but any way that we can create the ease of use of onboarding, I'm buying in.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. So yeah, it's one thing to do dozens and hundreds, try millions, right? So we just can't handhold millions. And so I think we've all, as an industry, we've come a long ways. I think we're doing much better. We got to keep doing better, but we're getting there.
Gotcha. And the answer might be obvious because it's so simple, but what's in the future of Redeem? Is it as simple as just continue down the path? Has the mission changed at all this last year?
Yeah, I'd say, again, the payments thing has been a bit surprising for me. I had not expected the payment angle. So I think it has helped refine our focus. So I think it is probably, again, this is kind of funny, but it's actually making it easier for really big companies who already have things like Okta and Auth0 and Ping. These are really big enterprise identity access management, right? So if you're at a big company, like I guarantee you have one of these really, or Microsoft, big identity access management. So being able to simply plug into those, so as their consumers are now wanting to access Web3, they have a very familiar, established infrastructure to work with those. So again, getting the innovation lab to go do some side project, okay, that's okay. But if you really want to scale, you got to fit into the enterprise's infrastructure, right? So, kind of the next quarter or two for us is starting to really onboard the names like Auth0 and Microsoft and Ping and some of these others on a platform perspective to make it easier for enterprises to plug in and roll out.
Yeah, it's definitely important. Back in my Web2 life, there was massive integrations with the likes that you're talking about with Okta and all these backends that once you get that solved, you're really going to make it a lot easier to onboard a lot of people because they're going to have access to, the repositories of customers that these big companies have built. So definitely look forward to that, and definitely look forward to doing a visual demonstration for those who are listening right now on a podcast in the future. So we would love to have you back to share that with us. And I imagine, hopefully not so much so, that Redeem's going to change in 6 weeks because, Web3, crypto, NFTs, what happens now 6 weeks is like, oh, here's a brand new topic. But I don't really see that happening for Redeem because, based off phone numbers, something that we learned to build a trust with monoliths built around it like Google and Apple, like you said. So yeah, definitely looking forward to the next iterations.
Cool. Yeah, as am I. And I'd love to come back and do some visual demos as well.
Joe and I want to see it. We're very interested. I can't wait to tell people I figured it out. I cracked the code. Making Web3 easier. I met a guy named Toby.
That's awesome. Great.
Yeah,
Bring it on.
I feel like I'm going to utilize your service unknowingly through a big company. I'm like, wait a minute. We interviewed Toby. We know this. So
I hope you're right.
Yeah, I think so. So we're going to put all the links on where to find Redeem and yourself down below on our show notes. And I encourage anyone out there to reach out to you guys with any questions at all.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks, Toby.
Thanks for being on, Toby.